Hello everyone. So in this particular video, we'll be taking a look at in-text citation according to upper 7th edition. And by the end of this video, we should be able to cite one author, two authors, three authors and above, and also cite organizations as authors and multiple sources or articles. So let's start by knowing what an in-text citation is. You see, in-text citations are used when we want to acknowledge a source of information within our text. So when we have our text, we will need to acknowledge the source of this information. And how do you acknowledge that source? Is by citing the source. And you can cite the source if it's one author, if it's two authors, three authors, or organization, as the case may be. So let's look at how to cite this particular text on the board. But before we go into that, I would love to divide in-text citation broadly for the sake of this video into two parts. We have the parenthetical citation, the parenthetical citation, and the narrative citation. The difference between these two types of citation is that for this one, the parenthetical citation, the source is in is in parentheses, is in a bracket. So the source is in a bracket like this. That is why it is called parenthetical citation. Meanwhile, for the narrative citation, this is when the citation is incorporated into the body of the text. So you can read it as a sentence and it makes sense. So let's start by citing one author now. So this is the text. Malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by a protozoan parasite that are transmitted to humans through the bite of infected female Anopheles mosquito. So let's cite this information using one author. So let's assume that the name of the author is Hassan, right? So if it's one author and we are doing the parenthetical citation, it comes at the end of the text. So at the end of the text, you have your parenthesis. You open your bracket, then you input the name of the author. So we used Hassan. Okay, so you write the name of the author and a comma, and then you include the year. So let's assume it was done, this study was carried out in 2026. Full stop. So this is how you cite one author. This is how you cite one author in the upper 7th edition of citation. So what about two authors? Remember, there is no full stop here. So it's like a continuation. The full stop only comes after the citation. So this is the first type of citation we have talked about today. So let's move to the second type of citation. Now, how do you cite two authors using the upper 7th edition? Let's assume that this is the text. You have your parentheses. The first author's name, let's assume it's Hassan, right? So we have the first author. The second author's name comes after an. So it is not the AND. We don't use this when citing for parenthetical, when using the parenthetical method of citation. We use the ampersand sign. So this is the ampersand sign. You write the first author and the second author. Okay, then a comma comes and the year of the information, and you close your brackets and put a full stop. So that's how you cite two authors. So for two authors, you have the first author, which is Hassan, the ampersand sign, and the second author, then followed by a comma and the year. So this is how you cite two authors using the parenthetical citation method. So let's move to three authors. How do you cite more than two authors? All right, so let's get rid of this. We'll still use the same name, the same name, Hassan. So let's assume we have Hassan and two or three more people that carried out this work. So how do you cite three authors and above? The first or the primary author will come first. So let's assume the primary author is Hassan, right? Hassan comes, then we have what we call et al, full stop, a comma, and the year 2026. So this already tells you that there are more than two people that carried out this research. So this is how you cite three authors and above. How do you also cite organization? So we have looked at one author, we have looked at two authors, we have looked at three authors. Now let's look at how we cite organization as author. So let's get rid of this. Let's assume we want to cite the World Health Organization, right? The World Health Organization, we know it's WHO, but you don't cite WHO just like this when it's appearing for the first time. If it's appearing for the first time in your text, you would have to cite it in full. So you don't use the acronym when it's appearing for the first time. So if it's appearing for the first time, it will be World Health Organization, a comma, then the year 2026, full stop. So that's how it will appear if you are citing for the first time in your work. But subsequently, you can now use WHO, comma, 2026 in parentheses. So that's how you cite for organization, right? Using the parenthetical citation. So let's move to multiple source or article. So for this one, it's assumed that we want to cite more than one article. So let's assume that this text came from more than one article, more than one source. So let's get rid of this. We use our first author we used before. So let's assume Hassan. Hassan et al, full stop, and a comma, right? Then you have a colon, a semicolon rather, a semicolon, followed by the second, sorry, Hassan, I beg your pardon, Hassan et al, the year 2026. Then a semicolon follows. Then what follows next is the second article or the second source. So let's assume the second source is Alloy et al. So this follows immediately Alloy et al, full stop, a comma, right? Then the year 2026. So this is how you cite two articles. So this is the first article, this is the second article. If you want to cite more than two articles, you just continue in that pattern. Okay. Now, an important thing here is that the article, the work that was done first should come first. So let's assume that this Hassan was done in 2025 and Alloy was done in 2026. Obviously, Hassan will come first before the before Alloy, right? But if Alloy was done in 2025 and Hassan was done in 2026, that means Alloy will have to come first. So it has to come in order of how recent the work was done. So, for example, a work that's done in 2010 will come first before a work done in 2015, a work done in 2020, and so on. So that's how you cite multiple authors. Now, this is just for the parenthetical citation. So now let's look at the narrative citation for one author, two authors, three authors, and so on. Using this particular text, most times for the narrative citation, it always comes in your review of literatures, right? It always comes, especially in the empirical review parts. So we'll have things like, according to this person. Malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by protozoan and so on. So let's assume that we are using this text now. You would have something like this. It can come in different ways. According to Hassan, that's for one author now. According to Hassan, in bracket 2026, malaria is a life-threatening disease. You see, there's no full stop. It just continues. So according to Hassan 2026, malaria is a life-threatening disease. That's how you cite one author for the narrative citation. But let's look at two authors now. For two authors, we will have Hassan and. So for the narrative citation, the difference is that for the narrative citation, when you are citing two authors, you use the full word and not the ampersand. Okay, so you're not using the ampersand sign, you're using the full word. So you have Hassan and Aloy 2026 in brackets. So the year must be in brackets when you're using the narrative citation style. So according to Hassan and Aloy 2026, malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by a protozoan parasite that is transmitted to humans through. Okay, so that's how to cite two authors using the narrative citation style. So how do you now cite more than three authors? More than three authors, you will still use et al. Like we used in the parenthetical type of citation. However, there will be no comma. There will be no comma. So for three authors and above, we would have according to Hassan et al. Full stop. Then the year in parentheses 2026. Malaria is a life-threatening disease. I hope you get. So according to Hassan et al. 2026, malaria is a life-threatening disease. There is no need for a comma. The comma only comes when it is in the parenthetical style of citation. So that's how to cite more than three authors. So the same way applies to citing organizations as author using the narrative citation or multiple source of citation, multiple source or article. So this is how to cite your work in upper 7th edition. If you have any question, please put it down in the comment section and I will do well to answer that. Before I go, the major difference between a citation and a reference. I've done a video on reference. If you have not looked at that, you can, I'll tag it to this video so you can go and check it out. The major difference between a citation and a reference is that a citation is a small chunk of a reference. So like we know here, like we have seen, a citation only contains two parts: the name of the author and the year of publication, right? The name of the author and the year the work was carried out. That is for citation. But for reference, reference contains much more parts. So it is out of the reference that the citation is picked. So you cannot just come and cite a work without having a reference. So your citation must come from a reference. A reference will obviously have the name part, it will have the year, it will have the topic of the research, it will have the journal is coming from, then it will have the volume. After the journal, it will have the volume. Then after the volume, it has the in some cases it will have the issue, then pages, So that's the major difference between in-text citation and references.